Many years ago, I read a book about acting by Michael Caine, and he was talking about his first movie role. And he only had one line in this movie, and he was saying how often when you only have one line, it's actually harder to do than if you have a bunch of lines. And they were shooting the scenes, and he only has that one line, and what happens? He screws it up. Well, this made the director furious. The director was so angry at him, and the director said, "You'll never work in this town again." And Michael Caine said that usually when someone says, "You'll never work in this town again," the person that says that is the one that ends up not working very much anymore. And what happened? Well, Michael Caine, he became a legendary actor, and the director of that movie, no one really knows or cares what happened to him. And you're going to see how that very much relates to what we're talking about today. So stick around till the end of the video. But first, I hope you saw that previous video where I destroyed Ben Shapiro with facts and logic after he actually destroyed himself at his Stanford speech, and all you had to do is fact check him. So be sure to watch that after this if you haven't seen it. But there were so many things after rewatching some of the clips of Shapiro's speech. That video I did, it was just a quick reaction right after watching it live. But if you watch the clips and really think about it, there's so many little things that I didn't mention where he's so full of crap, so dishonest. Like an example of that would be he took time to throw in an insult to Gab. Gab is a free speech alternative to Twitter, and it's a lot smaller, but it's a free speech platform. But he chose to insult Gab. Like, what the heck is wrong with a startup business that's a free speech platform and an alternative to a huge corporation? Why does he have to take the side of the huge corporation that is very much against free speech? So there's a lot of little things like that. I could, if I analyzed every sentence that he said, most of it's pure bullcrap, and that would be a much longer video, but that last one was great. Now, I have something to talk to you today. I gotta show you guys this, and this is gonna relate to that Michael Caine story, but first I gotta show you this, and this is real. It might not seem real, but check this out. This is from a politician from Texas, a congressman. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I think his name is Jan Crenshaw. Jan Crenshaw. I don't know, guys. But anyways, this is a quote, and this is real. I'm not making this up. You can verify it. This came out over the weekend. America would not be here without Israel. Huh, that's interesting. And you can see some of these reactions are pretty epic. Truly an inspirational quote. Anytime I start to think of something I've said that's ill-informed or foolish, I'll remember this quote and realize it could have been worse. Someone else says, we'd be doing just fine without them taking our money. Can you please explain exactly how America would not be here? Well, you know what? People are going to his events and asking him to explain that. You can see the responses here. Some pretty good ones that these GIFs pretty much say it all. However, I think the president of China, of all people, actually had the best response. Let's see what that's. Bro, that was so much cringe. You're out of social credit points. I'm taking your human rights. Well, that says a lot, but this is real. But like I said, someone asked him to explain how that is. Well, that's the whole big issue now, because people are actually doing that, and we're going to see a video of that, and we're going to see what happened. I don't think it's a good look for someone to be doing this, but you be the judge.
And they use that to cloak their anti-Semitic leanings and their racist leanings, and it's pretty gross. Guys, and I'll say this, now we're going to have a little come to Jesus moment. You don't, I wish you would.
He says we're going to have a little come to Jesus moment, and then someone yells out, I wish you would. But let's get to the important part of this video.
You don't have the luxury of the time that I grew up in, where nothing was online, and we weren't tweeting, and we weren't on Facebook, and things like this weren't being filmed. You guys live in that reality. And you're young and you're not that experienced.
He doesn't like being on camera.
Upset and emotional.
He doesn't like being.
Years from now, you're going to regret.
Yeah, he's pissed.
You're going to regret.
He's fucking pissed.
On camera and saying some of the things.
He's fucking pissed.
Well,
years from now, you're going to regret.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying here is we have you on camera asking some of these questions, saying some of these things, and you're going to regret this. Well, that sounds pretty scary. What does that mean? Well, obviously, that's a threat. Now, we can only imagine or try and interpret exactly what that means. Saying you're asking me the wrong questions, making me look bad, holding me accountable. Well, you're going to regret this. So, obviously, that's a threat. Now, what that means, that's only open for interpretation. Does that mean he's going to dox them and have people go after him? Does that mean that he's going to have someone murder them? Well, I don't think that's it. I think the most logical conclusion to what he's saying here, what he's threatening is, this is going to be on video for all time, and I'm going to make sure I use it to make sure that after college you can't get hired. I'm going to ruin your life economically. And that's not surprising that he would say that, actually, because if you look at this guy's Twitter, he's retweeting Ben Shapiro a lot. He's very clearly tight with Ben Shapiro. I even remember when Google was going to go in and testify in front of Congress, and he was telling everyone, "I'm going to hold Google accountable for censoring conservatives. I'm going to make them answer the tough questions." Tough talk, right? Well, what happened when he got the Google executives in front of him? Well, I heard that some people don't like Ben Shapiro. They're calling him a Nazi, and he's actually an Orthodox Jew. And, it's like all this ridiculous stuff and more promoting his buddy Ben Shapiro. But it's not surprising because you can see how these guys, even though they're supposed to be free speech advocates, obviously, if someone's asking you questions at a Q&A that you don't like and you're telling them you're going to regret this, obviously you don't believe that. And we know with how he votes and how he answers these questions. I don't normally call out politicians, but there's such a connection with Shapiro, who I've done a lot of videos about. Now, Shapiro's also supposed to be a free speech advocate, but let's see what he has to say about free speech. Let's take a look at this. It's quite interesting.
You would agree that racism exists.
Of course,
right? That there are people that are legitimate.
By the way, this is him on the Dave Rubin show. If you don't know who Dave Rubin is, he's a gay liberal Jew, so he has a lot in common with Shapiro.
You would agree that racism exists.
Of course,
right? That there are people that are legitimate racists.
It would be idiotic to think otherwise. Of course, there are legitimate racists, and we should target them, and we should find them, and we should hurt their career.
You hear that?
Legitimate racists, and we should target them, and we should find them, and we should hurt their career.
We should find racists, we should target them, and we should hurt their career. Well, there's a lot of huge problems with this because obviously it's against free speech. But the other main problem is, what is a racist? Can you define that? Because a lot of people will say he's a racist. So hey, guys, groypers out there, I guess we should target him and hurt his career because I hear he's a racist. The problem with that term, racist, that's just something used to slander people when they can't argue against your opinion. And, like, what's a racist? To some people, if someone wears a MAGA hat, they're racist. Or if they just have traditional Christian values, they will call them a racist these days. So that really means nothing, but Shapiro is all in favor of ruining people's careers. And I was wondering, like, because Shapiro, he's such an elitist, and he's so about money. He openly, like when he was talking about people that have to work more than one jobs, and he was saying that's a you problem. Well, obviously Shapiro's funded by billionaires. We've talked about that a lot. But I got to wondering, what is this guy's background? Because he seems like the guy that's never even had a job. He seems like the type of guy that would have never even mowed a neighbor's yard for a few bucks. Like that level. So I did some research. And sure enough, this shouldn't surprise anyone if you know anything about this guy. Here's an article from Vanity Fair. Let's make you famous. How Hollywood invented Ben Shapiro. And I'm not going to read this article to you. You can go read it if you want. But basically, his parents are television producers, and they had the right connections in life, and we should never complain about anyone having connections because that's their blessing. We should never complain about people having blessings that we don't have. So anyone that's born into an elite family, like whether it's the Trumps, the Hiltons, the Shapiro here, obviously, and they get these advantages. My dad isn't a Hollywood producer. If he was, I'd probably have quite a stellar acting career myself. He could be producing shows for me, at least help me get my foot in the door. But we shouldn't complain about that, first of all, because for one thing, a lot of people, they complain about me and certain blessings I have, like being tall, or whatever you want to say. But those are my blessings. My blessings is I'm tall, have a good head of hair, good looking, much better than Shapiro, and certainly a lot taller. I'm not an ugly little goofy midget that they've poured millions and millions of dollars in, but he's really even not that popular considering how much they've pushed this guy. And now the cracks are appearing. It's all starting to fall apart. Even in his speech at Stanford, he kind of referenced some of this about how your money, how much you make, goes in cycles, and there'll probably be a time when he's not earning as much and he's not as popular. I think he sees already somehow, even if it's only on a subconscious level, that the writing is on the wall. So, guys, I have some good news for you. Well, first, let me show you this before I switch off. Here's a funny cartoon of Jan Crenshaw. What's wrong with socialism? Thanks for your question. Socialism is really bad. Here's a griper. Why do we give Israel $3.8 billion a year? You will regret asking that. Well, that pretty much sums it up. And like I said, I know that this can be scary when you're getting threatened by an active congressman. But the reality is that I think these young guys, not only are they doing great work, they're great patriots. And if you watch a lot of political commentary on YouTube, it can suck you into a bad place. One reason I don't like to talk about political stuff is it's very low vibrational stuff, and it'll hold you back. It'll hold you back from going out and doing good things in your life because it'll bring your vibration down where you're worrying about stuff that you have no control of and there's nothing to do. So watching political commentary on YouTube, it can take you to a bad place, and you get to the point, at least if you think like me, well, what are we going to do about it? If we're just going to complain about things that are true, there's really no point in it if we're not going to take it to the next step. Anytime there's a problem, the first step is acknowledging there is a problem. Well, that's been done a lot now, and it's been done for years now. But if you're just going to acknowledge a problem, it's just going to put you in a bad place. If you don't actually work on actively solving it, step 2. It's kind of like if you have a garden full of weeds and you just say, oh my God, my garden is full of weeds. And every day you just talk about how many weeds you have in your garden. It's only going to make things worse. It's only going to expand the problems. But if you say, hey, we got weeds in our garden. Okay, I'm going to pull those suckers out. And then you have a beautiful garden again. So now we're seeing step 2 of the process where people, they're actually, like I talked about in other videos, you have to organize. You can't be an individual in something like this. That's very weak. It's not going to bring about change. But these guys, by golly, they did it. So it's very optimistic. These guys are on the front lines, and us, other guys, we're watching, and they're putting themselves out there on risk. They're the ones taking the threat from a congressman saying you're going to regret this. Much respect to those guys, and I believe that this is like the first time I've seen activism like this bringing about real positive change. So there's a lot to be grateful for to these guys, and there's a lot that's going to happen. And even if the culture war is lost and the complete opposite side win, it doesn't really matter, because that side, they're not into this particular issue themselves. They're into other social issues. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But this whole thing with this politician, it reminded me so much of that Michael Caine story of you'll never work in this town again. This guy's issuing a threat. Well, the surprise is going to be on this guy, I think. I think things in his career and his life are not going to pan out the way he wants. The pendulum is swinging. And this is a very important life lesson for all of us. It's an important reminder, because sometimes it's very easy, especially if you get a little cocky, you get a little power somehow in life, to tell other people that, oh, like, you know, you don't cross me or whatever, or get a bad attitude with people, or threaten people, or just disrespect people. And in reality, there's things that you never know what the future holds. That person might be your superior, or they might be in a position somehow where they can either help you or they can hurt you if you want to. So you have to be very careful of disrespecting other people out there and having these bad attitudes to other people. So what I want you guys to do is go out there into the world, have a good positive attitude and a good positive cheer about yourself, about the world in general, because things aren't as bad as they seem a lot of the times, even for these particular guys that are being threatened. And I mean, you never even know. Some of these guys, we don't know who these guys are showing up at these events. We don't know who their parents or relatives are, who their future contacts are going to be. But boy, if I had a position of power and someone talked to my son that way, of telling my son that he's going to regret this, if I had any power at all, I mean, it's not what a parent or a loved one wants to hear when you love someone. But go out there. We can't control a lot of things in this world. We simply can't. We can't control a lot of foreign policy or a lot of these political issues, but we can control ourselves, we can control our lives, and we can control our attitude, and attitude is everything. So if you haven't seen that previous video about Ben Shapiro, where I destroyed him using facts and logic, go check that out, or go check out another video on this channel. But don't just live your life in this virtual world. Go out there in the real world, much like what these groypers are doing. That's why it's powerful. They're taking it offline, they're taking it from online to the real world, and that's where the real power happens. That's where life actually happens.